Dear students, welcome to this teleconferencing session pertaining to postgraduate diploma in rural development. As you are aware, in this program we cover a large number of subject areas. One of the important area which we include in this syllabus is pertains to voluntary action. Under that we have covered topics like voluntary effort in rural development, voluntary agency administration, developing community-based programs. This is a very significant area in the context of rural development, particularly when you look back in that rural development before independence basically was not on the agenda of the state. Only with the Gandhian movement it came into picture as the Gandhian movement started bringing into focus the concern of the rural development and development of rural people, their upliftment and attending to the causes and concerns of poverty, education and all that. But still it was just outside the purview of the Indian state. After independence, Indian state incorporated in its policy to develop the rural areas. So since it became a matter of state subject and Indian democratic state struggled that at any cost in rural areas have to be developed, and it launched a number of programs, you are starting with the community development program and onwards. Through the beginning experience of the government's efforts and rural development programs, their failures or not so significant successes resulted into understanding that possibly people's participation is a very much required factor to make all these programs successful. When we think of people's participation, immediately comes to mind the voluntary action, and basically voluntarism means that when people come together, join themselves, identify certain problem and pool their own resources, they join together with their own free will and make certain efforts to solve a problem or to develop a certain area or to attend to certain kind of developmental concerns, and that's the basic underlying fundamental principle on which voluntarism is structured. If you the around 1960s-70s, basically state's perspective was seriously questioned by the voluntary organizations and the whole voluntary sector, because the voluntary sector perceived the developmental problems very differently than the state. State normally has a tendency to maintain status quo and not coming out very radically to transformation of the society. So since voluntary organizations come up from the grassroots, from the people, and their actions, basically their understanding is generally more rooted into the realities of the society. In that sense, around 1960s-70s, when the voluntary sector started questioning these the very paradigms of development or the whole perspectives of development of the government, and it started taking independent initiatives and all that. And even around the 70s and 80s, Indian state made certain kind of serious efforts to incorporate the viewpoint of the voluntary organizations, and now this has become almost a very much part of the policy making system in the state, that the voluntary organization, the voluntary sector as a whole is consulted, taken care of, and even a large number of NGOs and voluntary organizations are being supported through grant in aid by the state, and this has gradually given a good momentum for this this area for the voluntary sector. The issues which are involved are very important, and the area is very important so far as the rural development is concerned. In this session, we may acquaint you a little basic fundamental aspects of voluntary action. To begin with, as I said, that voluntarism is basically when people come together with their own free will, they pool their resources, they make certain kind of small association. Maybe to begin with, the number can be specified like 7, 8, 10 people. They can minimum number is certain number is prescribed into the various acts. Maybe it is 7 or so. So that then later on, like-minded people more can join it, and people can identify the problems, pool their resources, and there are certain various types of funds which even flow from industry, and there are various funds of come through grants and aid, and this sort of exercise then gives impetus towards attending to the problems at the local level. Basically, it's a collective or community-based action that springs from the people's own will or volition, I mean their own free desire. And there are, the best part of it is that state-sponsored initiatives are normally, when they are funding and all that, their bureaucracy is doing that, there are various kind of hurdles, which I will explain to you, that which are the factors hindering the developmental processes and programs. But if the developmental programs are taken up by voluntary organizations, that these are small, fluid organizations which don't have structured bureaucracies, and a small organization normally even don't have a formal organization. These are function basically with the certain motivated or the missionary zeal of the particular leader, which has a certain kind of gathering around him, and they are very effective in developing the area. In fact, a sea change has occurred. A sea change has occurred since as we have crossed the 2000 and have put our foot in the 21st century. Voluntary sector in India has very strongly come up and is now standing on firm footing. If you look into the whole scenario, one more condition which I will underline for the students to understand is that voluntary action basically emerges into democratic societies. If the society or the state is authoritarian, in authoritarian states it normally doesn't take root to a greater extent. No doubt voluntary actions, voluntary societies, voluntary organizations do exist over there, but their character and nature is normally limited to particularly to religious or philanthropic pursuits on this sort of exercises. But in a democratic society, there is a vast scope. Basically, it's the creation of the Indian democracy that the voluntary sector has grown so significantly in India. This underlying distinction, student must be clear about these aspects. So as I said, that this comes, a voluntary action or organization or association comes up with a particular type of people's initiative, and they join together and they pool their own resources to solve certain kind of problem. That is a theoretically pure position, ideal position. When working in society, from this ideal position, there is a drift. Like in the ideal situation, volunteers should devote their own labor, their own money, and a certain kind of, maybe their professional competence whatsoever the person has, he can contribute to the association or to the working together. But in practice, as these voluntary organizations grow, they tend to acquire certain kind of offices also, certain kind of paid employment, and professional people who are paid and all that. As these voluntary organizations or NGOs grow to a greater extent, or bigger, larger organizations with a geographical spread, let's say all over the country, certain large organizations have a spread, they are limited to a very local area, have a limited objectives, and they are intending to solve a limited problem. In that case, there is normally informal organization. It's an informal organization, not based on particular very strict, rigid rules and regulations. When organization grows, it tends to acquire all the bureaucratic characters. That's a division of labor or a hierarchy in offices, and functioning like bureaucracies. Different type of specializations and professionals and specialists working at various levels. Then it tends, and even people or employees are paid salaries, they have their own budgeting system whatsoever. Financial mechanisms to control it, then it tends to acquire like the bureaucratic structures like that only. So in that sense, this distinction, basic distinction from the ideal type to the actual functioning and the distortions which take place. Also, one more distinction is that there are a large number of voluntary organizations which are doing very good work. They are doing very missionary work with the missionary zeal and passion for the real development of the rural areas or upliftment of people. Maybe it's a scheduled caste, maybe scheduled tribes, maybe it can be agricultural laborers, maybe bonded laborers, or maybe child labor. A large number of vast areas of concern or problems of which the Indian society is facing are being attended by voluntary sector. There are a large number of voluntary organizations doing good work, but there are also a certain number of voluntary organizations which are fake or fictitious, which just make an association possibly to have a certain access to the state funds, and in that sense that number may be insignificant, but that sort of situation also exists on the ground. So these sort of distinctions student must keep in mind when entering into an area. We include certain areas in the syllabus very carefully after analyzing what's important for a particular discipline. And if you see from the very beginning, we first start with the social and economic condition, then we come to the planning and management, then this way we come to clearly opposed to planning and management concept is the voluntary action. So this sort of areas are included with carefully so that a student when gets through covers the whole syllabus and appears for the exam or clears and gets a degree, then he gets an overall very fundamental knowledge in the discipline. Now, basic conditions for emergence of voluntary or voluntarism or voluntary action are that which I said in the beginning also. I underlined that democratic society. It means that free and open society, because the concept of voluntary association is tied up with the very principle of freedom of association. Freedom of association was never available to mankind. It came into picture only when democracy and democratic institutions emerged all over the world. To begin with, let's say the democracy emerged basically in Great Britain or Western European countries, in United States of America, but India was lucky in that sense that we were a British colony. Since we were a British colony, a large number of democratic principles, rules, regulations, acts, ideas, laws, they were simultaneously, even before partition, before this our independence, they were transmitted and incorporated into the functioning of the Indian state. So we had a certain kind of democratic understanding of the processes of working of society already incorporated in the Indian state. After independence, the making of the constitution included very carefully when in the fundamental rights and other aspects the principle of voluntary association, the right to associate, the freedom to associate. That means that people can come together, make a group and work for any cause in the society. That is a very fundamental and basic condition. This requires a free and open society. It's that's the only ground where voluntary sector can flourish and can progress and can make certain kind of contribution to society. And so level of development is such, and other aspect, there should be a level of development, economic development or social development in the society to the level where people can devote their free time, and people can devote their labor and to the welfare of the community. If hypothetically large number of people are only trapped into working in let's say levels for just earning their daily livelihood to survive, food, clothing and shelter, and if these are the concerns, there will not be any people who can spare their I underline that, spare their free time and labor. That's another condition. First condition is the democracy, democratic institution, that freedom principle of association allows the people to come together and make certain kind of voluntary organizations or non-governmental organizations to and take some initiative in the society. The second condition is that the society should be developed to socially and economically and politically to such an extent that people are able to donate their own free time and labor. This is a fundamental condition. These two conditions basically are, and the third one is that such a venture should not be for profit making. This normally voluntary organization or voluntary action, these efforts are made non-profit purposes. Their whole essence is these are not made for earning certain kind of profit. So this is again is a character is a non-profit in nature. Voluntary action helps people to mobilize their own resources, find solutions to their own problems, and respond to the needs and aspirations of the community effectively. As I told it, that many programs launched by the state or the government, when they are implemented at the grassroots levels, the funds which are possibly conceived or for spending on those development projects don't reach over there. The large number of funds are, are appropriated by certain various types of sections of the people, maybe the bureaucracy, maybe local powerful people and all that, but the funds or the effort which is required for the projects doesn't go totally into it. So these experiences of the state are altered it, and normally even now after the Panchayati Raj Act has come into picture, most of the developmental programs state is insisting, Indian state is very seriously insisting that local level panchayats must identify their own needs and we can provide them the funds, and then they must make their own small projects for implementation, and so that because they are the people at the grassroots level who understand their problems, who can work together and solve those problems. So in that sense, voluntary action helps to people to, I again repeat it, mobilize helps people to mobilize their own resources, express their own potential, whatsoever potential they have, it gives them a forum for expression and to find solutions to their own problems and respond to the needs and aspirations of our community effectively. Basically, voluntary sector in India is bringing a very silent revolution. It's a silent revolution which is bringing, there may be large number of ills and which are problems unattended even till today. But contribution of voluntary sector is very significant when we look into the last half century since independence. It is growing and gets more and more stronger and contributing to the developmental processes very effectively. Now the voluntary action in practice tends to take the form of voluntary organizations. I told you to begin with people come together, very small number of people maybe, but then they urge other like-minded people to join them. Once more and more people join a particular kind of association, then it no more means a voluntary association. That connotation and term and changes. It is then called voluntary organizations. When it acquires a form of certain kind of maybe informal organization or formal organization. By informal organization we mean where there is no strict rules, regulations and law or constitution is there, no doubt, a certain set of constitution, but they not very rigidly following it, where charismatic leader is there, a leader who has an appeal. By charismatic I mean the leader who has an appeal, who has certain special qualities in him, and he runs an organization. Then it's run in an informal manner based on personal relations, and these organizations are many times more effective, more democratic, because there are no delays. When an organization tends to acquire a character of a formal organization, then bureaucracy comes into picture, then a movement of files or papers, it consumes times and there are bureaucratic hurdles always, so that leads to wastage of time and sometimes it's unproductive, and the programs and which needed to be implemented effectively or they are ignored, and a large number of problems starts occurring. So the voluntary, the distinction is from voluntary association. When to graduate to become a voluntary organization, there are a large number of people, and it tends to acquire the form of either a voluntary, informal organization or a formal organization. So further, main features of voluntary organizations are formed with the freedom and choice of people. As I underlined in the beginning also, voluntary organizations are formed with the freedom and choice of the people, by the people interested in the welfare or development of community, like those people who are genuinely interested somewhere in the society, identifying certain local problems in their village or nearby rural areas, and they can, let's say, if there is a discrimination against scheduled castes, certain motivated, young, educated people can just take up and make a small group. They can start attending to their problems. If their agricultural labor is not paid properly, they can attend and start questioning over there. One thing students must learn, being citizens of India, that it's a democratic country. If you understand the rules, regulations, laws and procedures, nothing can stop you to attending and taking up the problems with the state bureaucracies at your local level. There are a large number of organizations which have a ideological content to it. There are large number of associations which are only concerned with developmental aspects. There are large number of social issues India needs to attend it. Getting into the discipline of rural development doesn't mean that you just, many students ask us what kind of job I can get it, what kind of employment prospects are after doing the rural development and all that. Let the student be, our student must be very clear that rural development is the most happening area in India today. Indian state is making all efforts, voluntary sector is making all massive efforts to bring the upliftment of rural people, because if they are left behind, there will be a big gap between the rulers and the people at the ground level. The state or the ruler may not be the right term in the context of the political class. If the political leaders or the political class or the people with who are at the very rich or having all means of life, on the one hand at the top and at the lower level, if that gap increases, that will be very dangerous for India. So that's the concern. And if you have entered into a field of rural development, you should not only aim at getting maybe a job or so. That may be the one of the options. You can get into a certain organization, you can start working over there, you can contribute that way also. But there are a large number of options. If you are getting exposed to this area of knowledge, it must inspire you and must make in you certain kind of missionary yield, that I have to do I can do something for the rural people, and I can just make my own contribution. That way it helps both ways. You yourself will have a fruitful participation and also contribution to the society, and rural society will also get developed. So there is never in any subject, whether political science, sociology, economics, history, any subject you take up, there's never a one-to-one relation between job. This is not demonstrated by research. Research has produced that there is no one-to-one relation between the job and qualifications. Many people after BA or MA start their careers, enter into organizations, but when they enter over there in the organization, large number of things they learn over there in the beginning. So in that sense, looking for a job relation with one-to-one, I should not drift from my main argument for the time being. Though I come back to this again, to the concerns and basic aspects of voluntary organizations. So that sort of this knowledge, certainly what I mean to underline is certainly will be helpful to you, but if you carefully try to acquire that knowledge. Many times learners have a habit just to maybe mug up and remember it, and just with an intention to pass the examination.
that is not the acquiring of knowledge. So once you have acquired knowledge, it will certainly benefit you, it will make you a different person. You can, then you need not worry for anything. The knowledge takes care of you. But if your passion and zeal is not acquiring knowledge, in just passing the exam, and you have an eye for on a degree, and then it becomes a self-defeating exercise. Now coming back to the basic aspects of voluntarism, voluntary action again. So membership is purely voluntary, and non-profit making, it should be a non-profit making venture. I underlined it. It's normally voluntary organizations or is a non-profit venture. There is another set of also. I come to that distinction. They one kind of, they are voluntary organizations. Normally they are not registered with the state or some, and then there are non-governmental organizations which are normally, these distinctions I will explain to you. They are registered with the state under certain particular acts, and they get also grant in aids. If the voluntary organization has to get a grant in aid from the Indian state or from the government, then it must get registered, and then only it's entitled to get that grant in aid. But its character changes. Its character changes, it loses its freedom. It loses freedom to formulate its own policies, its own initiatives, its own actions. Then there are certain restrictions imposed by the government, imposed by the state. Then if the state is funding, then it also desires that certain kind of developmental perspectives which the state has, those should be implemented according to the broader policy outlines of the state. So this is one distinction. There's another distinction. There are certain kind of organizations which are in the process of production, like entrepreneurship or for example cooperatives. So they will make an organization where they are producing goods. This distinction is applicable like in neither state nor the market is capable of, in any country, even in developed countries. I mean, the whole basically thing started, this whole concept of non-profit organization started right from there, from the Western development countries, when the state over there, democratic state over there, was unable to provide goods and services, let's say health services, let's say other sanitary services, let's say various kind of services to the people, or various kinds of goods which were not available to the people. And market has its own logic also. Market is never concerned and focused to provide all sort of demands of the society. So there are large areas left where demand always exists. So in that sense, certain people come together, they start manufacturing, like factories, productions or other things, manufacturing certain goods, but with the aim to begin with, maybe for the benefits of the members only, or certain non-profit organizations may extend their services to the community or the society as a whole. These sort of non-profit organizations have a different distinction. They are basically in the process of production. They produce goods and services, and then they provide these services like hospitals, nursing homes or other things to the society, but without earning any profit. Theoretically, without earning any profit. But then you may ask, the question may rise in your mind, from where the money comes. Certain money comes through philanthropy. Big rich industrialist houses or religious organizations, they donate money for philanthropic causes, for charitable purposes. The money flows from there. Then state also funds certain these kind of non-profit organizations. And then besides that, there are certain motivated people who have a lot of money, but they want to do good for something good for the society, and they pool together money also, make a corpus fund to begin with, and start from there certain kind of production, maybe then start serving the society. But the whole basic ethos, the underlying ethos remains that they are not desiring to earn profit. They don't make any profit, and they cannot distribute. That also is legally bound. They are legally bound not to distribute the profit among themselves. And no doubt there can be other kind of distinctions. For example, they draw indirect benefits. Like indirect benefits are like that, if so and such person is working in certain position in that organization, he can have his social influence, he can have certain kind of honorariums, certain kind of perks and all that. So for making, after all, those people have to live, they have to survive also. So certain kind of indirect benefits are associated with these kind of distribution, but no direct distribution like in industry. Any business concern or business enterprise or business organization is functions on the very fundamental principle of earning profit. It will aim at earning the profit. Once the profit is there, a certain proportion of that is given in lieu of salaries to its staff, and certain portion of the profit is kept by the owners or reinvested in the organization or invested into the what you call the machines or factory, or acquiring more technological know-how and instruments whatsoever. So this sort of distribution is there. There's no bar, there's no hindrance for a business organization to distribute the profit, or there's no bar also from earning the profit. But non-profit organization, there is a bar. There they cannot earn profit. They also, if they earn profit, they cannot distribute also. So the question I posed and I answered simultaneously is, from where the funds come? From philanthropy, from charities, maybe from the state. And also, when these organizations give services, let's say nursing homes and all that, they charge nominal fees. They charge very nominal, very marginal fees, and money flows from that fees also. And this sort of funds and financial get together, when they pooling together, makes these organization funds. Certainly they normally contribute to the good of the society, and this sector is wide in that sense. I mean, in the Western countries, the concepts emerged in the Western countries, but India was, I said in the beginning, India was lucky to have these kind of manpower, educated people, or people who really motivated and started. Now these organizations in thousands and thousands working in India, and this is bringing gradually some, maybe you may not be very noticeable contribution and upliftment, but certainly it's coming up and all that. The society which was so, kept like, let's say, a section of the whole society like scheduled caste and all that was kept like slavery for thousands of years. Certainly it will take time for that to come up. The poor, for the poor, or for the downtrodden, or for the leftover people, there it will take certain time, but democracy has given the ground. There's a free, open ground to run. There are no hindrances there to struggle or to make effort. It depends now the people jointly on the people how to do, how to come up. And in this experiment, a large number of things are coming up. Voluntary sector, as I said in the beginning, is one of this. This emergence of the voluntary sector itself speaks of the very vibrant democracy in India. So they should be, I come back to the basics of the topics also, because explaining the wider issues may be also suitable, but then they are rooted into the basic aspects which we give into you in the syllabus. They are governed by their own set of rules and regulations. Again, note it, voluntary organizations are not governed by any other government agency or any other state agency or any other local agency, no. They are governed, they formulate their own rules, regulations, their own constitution, their own understanding, and then they stick to those rules and regulations, they follow those rules and regulations. As I said, in the informal organization, they are not so seriously followed. That works on personal relations, maybe, following a charismatic leader, but when the organization become formal, then they certainly have their own rules, regulations. And they do not function under the administrative control of the government. That's the ideal condition. That's the ideal condition. But since once they start seeking help from the state, the grants and aid, then certain conditions do come in picture. Then they even, I told in the beginning that they acquire the character also from voluntary organization, then they acquire the character of a non-governmental organization. So most of the VOs are voluntary organizations, are registered under Societies Registration Act of 1860 or similar acts of the state. There are other acts also in the state, and there are the various acts, but voluntary organizations mostly are registered under the Societies Registration Act of 1860, and the registration entitles them to receive grants in aid from the government. If you are not registered, if the organization or association is not registered, the association or organization is not entitled for getting any aid from the government, grant in aid, in the sense there is large corpus of fund, even in the 11th plan or beginning with the 10th plan onwards. Basically there is now special focus given, in fact it starts with the 7th plan. In 7th plan, Indian state recognized very seriously the importance and significance of voluntary sector. It gradually grew it. Now as coming up to a 10th and 11th plan, it has now incorporated it as a state policy. Basically voluntary sector people are invited together, things are decided, certain policies are made, and even quite substantial space within the state policy it's given to the voluntary sector now. It has almost incorporated in the state policy, and Indian state is very much serious about the involvement of the voluntary organizations, NGOs, non-profit organizations, because by its experience Indian state has realized it alone cannot develop. It alone cannot develop the rural India. No. And market itself has no interest. Market has a interest in profit. Market will those things, market will behave in a fashion where the profit is there. It may contribute out of that profit to certain kind of philanthropy and charities and all that. But the sole aim, the main aim of market and business concerns is profit. So the voluntary sector is, sector is the only big, contributor which can be effective in bringing a social transformation in the rural areas. The superior roles of the voluntary organization in development, in fact I had been throughout talking why it's superior than the other, but still for just basics I can again count it by first hand and better knowledge of local needs, problems and resources. This is superior because the people right at the grassroots levels have a first-hand and better knowledge of the local needs. The people sitting in cities or those who don't have exposures of the rural problems over there, those who are policy planners at the top, they may not have any idea, right idea. Theoretically, you don't get the whole idea. In theory, you can get certain ideas, but when you go in practice, so since those people are living over there and are observing those problems daily and also facing those problems, and also those problems are impinging on them, so they understand better, they have a better knowledge of the local needs, problems and resources. They are formed by the people's initiative. Hence, since they are formed by the people's initiative at the grassroots level, so certainly they are close to the people. They are very close, they live very close by to the people for whom they are working, whom they want to develop, whom they want to bring, whom they want to bring up, or or seek their upliftment and all that. Commitment and yield is stronger vis-a-vis rigid bureaucratic system. Bureaucracies are rigid, like file movement, hierarchy, division of labor. These are rigid structures. So they don't go beyond the rules. They will just get stopped in the rules, and need may be very immediate, visible right over there. But bureaucratic procedure may delay it. Though that normally the voluntary organization, they are functioning has a basic fundamentals of freedom over there. Very less application of a rule. They can, according to the problem, they can mold their functioning as suitable to a situation. So that, in that sense, they are very effective. More responses it's more responsive to the needs of the community. Since these people are working with the community over there in a local area and all that, so they have to be responsive to their needs. If they are not responsive, they will not be accepted by the people. A greater operational flexibility. Voluntary organizations have a greater flexibility. They adapt more easily to the experience gained at the grassroots level. More cost effective, since there is no elaborate bureaucratic structure. Since there will not be large number of offices down the line, bureaucracy and large number of paid employees, so in that sense they are very cost effective. Small voluntary organizations are very cost effective, and that's this basic distinction and all that. I think I made certain distinction between voluntary organization and NGOs, but time is falling short. If the students are interested, I can carry on even with this topic further for some time, and then acquaint you later on with the research and project work. And some students at this stage, since the year is going to end, and many students just wake up around October, November to work on their project report. That's the course which normally students have large number of apprehensions about that. So I had in mind that maybe one session more I will devote to that, but that can be seen according to time. We will meet after maybe 15 minutes or so again for the second session. And one more request to a student is that they should come over there and attend it. It's certainly beneficial, and normally we don't get the responses. If there are students, they should not hesitate and call us and ask certain questions. That makes it more lively, and you know, even there are certain kind of sometimes we also get insights into various kind of problems of the students. But unfortunately, no much responses we don't get these days. I think we can wind up at this stage, and we'll come back to the next session after 15 minutes or so. Thank you very much.